Okay, so the question is, do you commit to the following if elected as an MP? And the first is to stand up for the rights and dignity of Palestinian refugees by supporting the immediate and full restoration of UK funding to UN RWA, ensuring it can fulfill its mandate. Sorry.
Yeah, can I read that? The Green Party.
Sorry, just to make sure everybody else in the audience understands, UNRWA is the UN refugee organisation set up specifically for the Palestinians.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah, the Green Party has been calling for a ceasefire, two-side ceasefire since October the 7th. It's been our policy. I've actually got what the Green MPs are committing themselves to. An immediate and permanent bilateral ceasefire. A durable political solution that ensures security and equal rights for Israelis and Palestinians. Recognition of the state of Palestine and an urgent international effort to end the illegal occupation of Palestinian land. Investigation and prosecution of war crimes. We believe there is strong evidence to support South Africa's submission to the International Court of Justice that Israel is guilty of genocide in its conduct in Gaza. And right now, because arms from our country are being used to kill Palestinian children and women, an end to all UK arms exports and military cooperation with Israel, which at the moment makes the British government complicit in war crimes.
I think what you've done there, Martin, you probably answered about 3 of the questions I'm going to ask, which is great. So we can just take it out, and that will give us more time for the rest of the agenda if you're willing to let it flow. But I'll let you make that shout. Do you want to go next, James?
Yeah,
and then we'll go to Aadil and then to you, John.
Yeah, I completely agree with Martin's last point. Where we differ is in our manifesto. We do not see a two-state solution working at all. It's going to be an endless conflict. So what we are looking at is a one-state solution, whether that be Israel, Palestine, Palestine, Israel, where all those born in that land have equal rights and will be treated as equals. This has been put together by George Galloway, a man who fought with Nelson Mandela, was imprisoned with Nelson Mandela in apartheid South Africa. There's been a lot of thought put into that process, and we are fully backing that. Obviously, we will go after the war criminals in Israel, and I think we actually need to look closer to home as well. I think there's a lot of people in our government now that are complicit that we do need to hold to account.
And you know, the latest news on that, Britain has challenged the prosecutor's right to prosecute Netanyahu.
And it's because there's never been any accountability in Parliament, full stop, and it has to change. We have to hold these people to account.
Yeah. That's how politicians.
We can rely on Peter Tatchell trying to arrest him if he appears a few times, but not two state, not one state. The Palestinians have to decide.
Yeah. You've done your bit, Aadil, and then we'll get to Jonny.
Yeah, looking at an immediate cessation of hostilities. The loudest voice, ceasefire in Gaza, and of course an immediate ban on weapons licenses to Israel, and any sort of military assistance. Not on my tax pounds are we going to see innocent women and children being obliterated. 144 of 193 member states voted in favour of Palestine being recognised as a sovereign state. I will call for an immediate withdrawal of Israel to the 1967 borders, and upholding the values of the ICC and ICJ. On that point that you just made, Jamshaid, actually, about our government's, the irony of the ICC and ICJ was that they were put into place to counter Soviet aggression, to actually put Russia in check of Russian aggression. Now, ironically, it's all been reversed because they're friends of the government being all into question.
Liberal Democrats, we were the first major party to call for an immediate bilateral ceasefire. I think probably broadly agreed on the panel here. We've got to think about what's going to be a longer term solution, and that involves engaging everybody in the region. We are suggesting that at this point the best option looks like a two-state solution, but I think, as one of our panelists said, that's also got to be led by the people in that region. So we are committed to peace. We've also been the first major party to look at sanctions against some of the members of the hard right members of the Israeli war cabinet. But I would also just say that we've got to also understand our responsibilities here in North London, and I think I'm not an expert on Middle East politics. I think there's broad agreement here, but what I would really caution us all is to make sure that we are respectful of our communities here in North London, because I know that both Jewish communities and Muslim communities have suffered abuse and fear, and I think frankly that needs to stop. So we are absolutely committed to peace, but we're also committed to making sure that we have as strong community relations here in London as we can.
A lot of it comes down to what you're saying, Jonny, comes from the conflation of anti-Semitism versus Zionism. Okay, we cannot forget that at the forefront of these peace marches were our Jewish brothers, and Christian brothers, and Muslim brothers, and Hindu brothers, and Sikh brothers, and every member of the community, every decent individual who stands for humanity. So criticising a certain state because it's run by right-wing lunatics does not equate to anti-Semitism.
And I think just on that, we've tried to work more with liberal parties within Israel as an alternative voice, working with other partners in the region. So we've got to step away from some of this rhetoric of fear and hatred and think about actual practical solutions.
Can I just say as well though, sorry, just very quickly, the only people in the country that have actually really been targeted on a daily basis in the media and in Parliament is the Muslim community. The Islamophobia is running rampant throughout Parliament and the media, and it's at free rein. If that was said about anybody else, there'd have been criminal charges brought upon them, there'd have been lambasted for being racist. That has not come down to the same conclusion when it comes to Islamophobia, and that needs to change.
Yeah, I better have tell you that I have an interest in this. I'm the former chair and secretary of Brent and Palestine Solidarity Campaign, who've been campaigning for a long time before October the 7th for peace and equality in Palestine. And you're quite right, a lot of our members are Jewish people who disassociate themselves from what's going on at the moment with the attacks on Gaza and the settlements attacks on the people in the West Bank.
Just a quick question, and probably I would like to hear your answers to either yes or no. When Russia started the war against Ukraine, there was sanctions against Russian citizens. So Russian students weren't allowed to come study the UK, British university, most of the British university wouldn't issue them with a student visa. Now we have dual nationals of British Israelis who are fighting within the IDF. My question to you, are you going to enforce sanctions against Israeli citizens who have been involved with IDF and who have dual nationality, British nationality? Some of them have returned back, and it's either yes or no answer to that.
Just go down that and just quickly.
I can't answer that because we don't have a policy on it. I'm here representing the policy. Yeah.
If they're directly involved in the conflict, yes. If they're not, you're going to have rampant xenophobia and rampant racism, and that can't happen. If there is a direct link with them being involved in that atrocity,
There was someone that came back and I did a few weeks ago degree.
Definitely. 100%.
And the people coming in the war that come back.
And in terms of sanctioning their students to come and study in the UK, similar approach. We've done against Russia. Why do we do certain approach towards the Russians? And we don't apply the same with Israelis.
Well, we should never have punished the Russian population for the crimes of their leaders. I don't think that's fair. I think
you guys want to give a quick one-word answer? And then
I can't give a one-word answer because it's complicated. But yeah, I can give a sentence. I'm trying a sentence.
I'll give you that.
I think, look, we've put targeted sanctions against, as I say, members of the Israeli government who we think are responsible for some of the acts there. There's a principle within international law that you don't target or sanction the lowest grades. You go after the leadership, and I think we would follow those principles. And look, we've got the ICC and the ICJ. South Africa are already taking steps there. And just to point out, the ICC is looking at war crimes and crimes on both sides. So what we would do is we would support that process to its fruition.
Yeah, but I think the question is slightly different because what the gentleman is saying is those who have been actively involved, right? I think James is all clear. If your policy of just dealing with people who are leaders, then
it's a long-standing.
Just getting them scot-free. Yeah, I get it.
It's a long-standing.
But that's giving people free rein to go.
It's not giving free rein. It's where crimes are committed. The leadership.
Yeah, but you had people of the Muslim community from different nations going to the Middle East, etc. They got prosecuted, right? And if we're going to use that standard for that community, we should use the same standard but it's ready to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
But look, it's not.
We can't have one rule for one group and another.
No. Exactly, which is why we're committed to the ICC process and following international
Yeah, but
law.
the ICC process didn't apply to it.
Exactly.
Because it wasn't a state actor, that's why. So there are nuances in law. Look, I'm not an international lawyer, and I don't want to misspeak on this.
Sure.
But the principle is that we would go after the people.
But when you support any Brent citizen, for example, who will come up publicly, promote his crime
I don't
in
know.
social media to be persecuted by the British.
I'm not.
That's not that hard to answer, surely.
Look, I'm not a jury.
In war
I mean,
crimes.
it's either yes or no. I mean,
If someone's been convicted of a crime by an
it's
appropriate...
documented. He documented that gentleman lives in Brent.
Okay, so let me make it easy.
It's not
for
for
you.
politicians to
John.
take in the role of
John,
lawyers.
let's make it easy for you, right?
Yeah.
You've just been elected by Brent. You're in Parliament, and you've got school teachers who've been in the IDF, killing children and killing women, and they're teaching here, and they're putting posts up in Parliament, and you've got immunity, right? In Parliament, you can say what you like, and no one's going to prosecute you. Are you going to say something?
But look,
It's not about law now, it's about making a moral stand.
But you could apply that same. There were teachers who've served in the British Armed Forces who probably killed people.
Yeah, but we're not talking about them right now, are we?
No,
Yeah, we're
that's
talking
principle.
about war crimes here.
Yeah, and when there's been a war crime,
Yeah.
of course we would take the full sanction of the law against anyone who's committed war crimes.
There's two parts of it. There's a legal matter, and there's a moral pressure on people who are actors, right? And the job of a politician is to apply moral pressure. And you're saying, I won't do that.
No, I'm
Because
not.
I'm going to leave it to the legal process.
Yeah, because I believe in due process and international law.
Okay, I think you made your place very clear. Yeah, over to you.
Jonny, you've done it so well until now, man. I'm going to save you anyway. Look, the double standard. See, this is the benefit of being an independent. See, I'm fearless. I'm going to say it as it is. I don't have to toe any party line when it comes to genocide. Let me give you the double standards. When Ukraine was invaded by Russia, we had the blue and yellow flags out. We had rental schemes to bring aboard Ukrainians. We are having, in comparison, PhD students from Palestine. Forget repatriating them to safety.
Yeah.
Palestinian students, PhD students, being denied permission to enter this country. We have IDF soldiers, alleged IDF soldiers, okay, who have been posting their war crimes on TikTok and have returned to UK soil. Right? Compare that with Maria Hussein, who knows her, the protester who held a placard in a so-called democratic country. We have the right of upholding free speech. She's been arrested for what? For what? For voicing and expressing her opinions and concerns. Yet we have criminals, war criminals here on our soil who are going unaccounted. So my answer to you, my brother, is yes, unequivocally.
Because I hear that the power of being independent, you do not have the power to pull such a motion with support in Parliament unless you are part of a major party, especially on an international issue such as this. So I do not understand why you keep pushing the independent, I can do this, isn't party line. Or you can be part of a party that stands on the same issues of you, but then you have gone on to split the Palestinian vote, where we had a real chance of ousting Labour and Dawn Butler and Keir Starmer. That's the point I'm going to make.
James, I admire you as a human, and I admire the fact that you're standing with George Galloway, a human that I have respected for the most part of my life. Okay? You're from Leeds North, you make a valiant effort, my friend. But I grew up here on these streets, I represent these people.
Okay, that's not what's that got to do with Palestine?
It has a lot to do with Palestine. I'm addressing the part that you've mentioned that I'm an independent. I'm telling you why I'm stepping up as an independent. Give me the opportunity to answer part of that question. The other part about Palestine is that there is definitely a need for accountability. There is definitely a need for, but when it comes to the part of splitting the vote, I personally believe that the people have the right to choose the right candidate, the most vocal candidate, on matters that affect them the most. If they feel me as a more vocal candidate on Palestine, I'm not saying you are for a second, but if they see me as a more suitable candidate, growing up in Brent for 42 years, knowing every single nook and cranny of the street, if I were to ask you the shape of the Wilton High Road 20 years ago, would you be able to tell me what it is? If I were to ask you the bottlenecks in Brent, would you be able to tell me? Name me 5 schools in your borough. Name me 5 schools in the borough of Brent. James, putting it to you.
Yeah, it's fair enough.
Well, that's answers the question, my friends.
It does, but...
Can I just make one point?
Yeah, please do, Mike.
Yeah. I didn't take a view because I'm following a party line, because I'm not the candidate.
Sure.
The candidate might have said something different. But just to point out that Israel is a militarised state. People are called up into the army. Almost everybody in Israel served time in the army. So there's nobody who's not tainted by military service. And that makes it much more difficult.
Yeah, but there are conscientious objectors in Israel who refuse to do
There are
so.
some, and they're good, they're great people, and there's some of the more traditional Jewish religions won't take part either. But it means that, for example, in our Jewish schools in Brent, who have security, their security are people who did serve in the Israeli army, in the IDF, which I don't think should be called IDF. It's not a defence army, it's an offensive one.
Yeah.
But so it's more complicated, and if we start doing that, then there's a whole load of things that follow on that we would have to address.
Okay, well, I want to move on now because there was 2 or 3 questions on. Well, actually, I've got 11 questions, and I'm not going to do all of them right at a time. So I'm going to be ahead of tomorrow morning, right? There's one that I've highlighted, which is to support the suspension of the 2030 roadmap for UK-Israel bilateral relations and negotiations towards enhanced trade agreements in response to grave violations on international law and the immediate imposition of a ban on trade with illegal Israeli settlements. Would you support that?
Fully support BDS, boycott, divestment and sanctions, not just in terms of goods, but in sports, for example. Until recently, Puma, the company, sponsored the football league, Israeli football league, which didn't allow Palestinians to play. That succeeded. They've withdrawn their sponsorship. We need to know which companies here are complicit, as well as a complicit government, and boycott them.
Yeah. Thank you, Amin.
I completely agree.
Anybody got an alternative view to that, just to help accelerate the process? But
I mean, all I would say was again make the distinction between the current Israeli government, which is appalling, and Israeli society, which has liberal parties, which has people who are much more aligned with the views in this room. So let's just be a little bit cautious.
Sorry,
This
John.
government, absolutely.
Sorry, John, but I've got to intervene there because surveys show that 85% of the population of Israel actually agree with their government. All right. So when you've got
Well, let's see at the next election, Israeli election. Netanyahu's not going to win, probably.
no, but the point is, the population of that country, the majority of it agrees with the way it's been operating. The only way to get action is to actually have trade agreements, which basically blocking where they're actually making money. And you've got people don't listen to economic pain, don't they? That's how South Africa came down.
Yeah.
That's how we got rid of apartheid there. So if you want to make change, you've got to put pressure on. That's the only way to put pressure on. Unless you want to go military, and no one's going to do that. We know that.
Well, but there's also ways to support Israeli civil society to get a better future for everyone.
That hasn't worked for 75 years, has it?
Well, we need to redouble our efforts. Yeah.
So BDS is a very lawful form of non-violent protest. It's a expression of our legality of free speech. It's an exercising our democratic rights. I'm going to be vehemently opposing any legislation against BDS. We've seen the impacts on all global corporations, McDonald's, for instance, Starbucks. Their CEOs have come out and made statements now we are feeling the bite. We're feeling the hit. So these things do make a difference. And we need to make sure that any corporation or any organisation that funds a military genocidal operation needs to be held to account, and we need to boycott them. So I will stand vehemently against any legislation boycotting BDS.
Thank you.
That's a really important position.